My name's Anay Apte. I'm an incoming student in the class of 29 at the University of Pennsylvania, and I'm studying computer science at their School of Engineering and Applied Sciences.
Perfect. All right. When you tell people you got into UPenn, did they immediately ask like, how'd you do it?
Yeah, so I mean, whenever I tell anyone that I got into the University of Pennsylvania, they always ask me, how'd you get in? What were your extracurriculars? What were some of your essays? Could you share some of that stuff? And if there's a specific answer that they're looking for, I kind of tell them like, straight up, it's not the same thing for everyone. Like what I did to get in is not the same thing that you will do to get in. And it's not the same thing that another person would do to get in. Could offer some general advice in terms of extracurriculars and essays. And so if they need anything that I've done as a reference, I usually give them what I've turned into the university. And then I just sort of explain to them, like, if they have any questions on what I've done, how I specifically did something. And I'm always available to help them whenever they need processes on getting into college.
Perfect. All right. So like before we dive into your story, I have to ask like when you got that UPenn acceptance letter, what was your first thought?
This is pure bliss, man. I can't even lie. Like, I applied to early decision, and so that was my dream school. I really wanted to get in, and when I saw the confetti on my screen, I was excited. I like immediately ran to my mom's room next door, and I just shouted. I was like, "Yes, let's go, let's go!" I was so excited.
Yeah, I bet. Like I think it was very similar for me as well. I was with my friends. I was playing just Overwatch, I remember. They were like, "Oh, let's just open the acceptance letter first." And yeah, just celebrate it right after. Perfect. All right. There's this myth that these top colleges only accept superhuman teenagers. So
Mhm.
what do you have to say for that?
Nah, anyone can get in really. If you have the drive to really want to get into these colleges, you can. Like I feel like everyone always thinks you need to found a startup or you have to get a perfect ACT, SAT, or you have to do something else that's insanely difficult, or all three of those things combined. Yeah, doing some of those things could help, but really I think what these colleges look for the most is you just being passionate about whatever you've done in high school. Like if you just care about what you've done,
Hmm.
that's usually more than enough because while the extracurriculars on their own are good, I feel like it's more so the experiences that matter a lot more because then you can write about what you've learned and what you care about in your essays. And I feel like that genuineness goes a long distance into getting accepted into these top colleges.
We're gonna do a deep dive into your extracurriculars and essays and everything. But before we do that, I gotta ask your background. Like, where are you from, and how does someone from your location end up at UPenn?
Yeah, for sure. So I'm from the Chicagoland suburbs. I'm almost
Hmm.
south from Chicago, like 40 minutes away. I'd say in terms of the kids in my area, we're a little bit more well off than some people, so we have a little more resources that we can use. I think generally a lot of us get into good colleges. That doesn't mean that it's guaranteed. By no means, you still have to put your effort in and your dedication, but the resources we have are a little bit more at our fingertips. And so it's a little easier for us to get into colleges. And for me at the University of Pennsylvania, I definitely leveraged what I had. In terms
Hmm.
of how many kids in my area got into UPenn, I know one other person. He's one of my friends, close childhood friends. He also
Hmm.
got in. And so both of us were going class of 29.
Perfect. I have a very similar situation where my childhood friend is going with me to NYU as well. Same
That's
class.
awesome.
It's so much like cooler, like in terms of, like you already have one person, you can hang out with.
Yeah, for sure.
So like what kind of high school did you go to? Public, private?
Yeah, so I went to a public high school
Mm-hmm.
in my city. And so I've been there for all 4 years. I didn't move in. I didn't move out. I've been there since the very beginning, and it was definitely a ride. I'll say that.
All right, and like when did UPenn first enter your mind as a possibility? Was it like always a dream, or did it eventually become one?
It was always something. Like I knew that one of my goals, I wanted to make it into a top tier school. I knew UPenn was one of them, but again, I didn't really know
Uh-huh.
specifically which one I wanted to until my junior year. That's when I really started visiting college campuses and just sort of seeing what the options were. For me, my specific interests were in business and finance as well as computer science. And so I thought UPenn would be the perfect mix for that
Yeah, for
since
sure.
it's known for business and then also has a pretty good CS program.
Yeah, perfect. Good for you, man.
Thanks so much.
All right, let's talk about your stats. I think this is the area where everyone's most interested in. So, like, what were your stats? I'm talking about GPA, test scores, the works. All right, really quickly, if you found value in this podcast so far, I've been exactly where you are. I'm sharing the exact case studies, doing live Q&As, and free one-on-one calls because I wish someone had done this for me. So it's free, but we're gonna be closing soon. So join with the first link in the description, and let's get back to the interview.
Yeah, so I had a 4.0 unweighted,
Mm-hmm.
and then I had a 4.7 weighted. But the way our school does it is we have weighted classes and unweighted classes. Weighted classes are from a scale of 5 to 1, and then
Uh-huh.
unweighted classes are from a scale of 4 to 1. So that's how weighted I have a 4.7, and then unweighted it's a 4. So all those weighted classes would convert to unweighted if we're talking about unweighted GPA, and then weighted GPA is including the 5. It wasn't easy to keep that. Like there are a lot of nights where I had to stay up way
I
past my
bet.
bedtime doing stuff. So it's not easy if anyone's watching this to keep a 4.7. Like you see a lot of people getting them into these good colleges. It's not easy at all. There's a lot of sacrifice that goes into them. If you've seen some of my reels, you know I talked about how
Yep,
I had to sacrifice some hangouts with friends to get here. And there's some regret to that, but also there's a lot of gratefulness that I did do it
for
since I was
sure.
able to keep that and ultimately achieve my goal. If we're talking about test scores and stuff, I got a 36 on my ACT. Again, that
Mhm.
was not an easy thing to do. It took a few months to
I
prepare for
bet.
that. And then I guess that's it, unless there's anything specifically you're looking for that I
Yeah,
haven't covered.
like, were you the valedictorian or were there people ahead of you?
Okay, yeah, so that's an interesting thing. Our school got rid of valedictorian like a few years
Mhm.
back. So there was no valedictorian for our class.
No. Okay. And so, like, you guys don't do class ranks at all?
No, not at all.
Okay. And like for the ACT, you got like a perfect score. So
Mhm.
like, how many times did you take it?
I took it once.
Took it once. And like, what
Mhm.
was the journey like? How, what advice would you give to someone who's looking to prepare for ACT right now?
Okay, so what I'd do if I were to start this all over again is to take one diagnostic exam
Mm-hmm.
just to see where I'm at. So with that, what I'd focus on then is looking at my score, not in terms of whether I got a 35, 34, 36, but more so what questions am I missing the most? I'd look at that specifically, and then I'd focus on the sections that correspond to those missed questions. So if I'm missing a lot of English questions about grammar, for example,
Mm-hmm.
I'd focus on those questions specifically. I'm missing a lot of math set questions, I'd focus on that section. And so I'd sort of piece it like that. From there, once I look at my diagnostic test scores, I'd make a plan as to what I'm going to tackle and when. And then after a few weeks, I'd cover back and take another test to sort of see what my improvement is.
Okay, for sure. Like just get your baseline level and then go from there.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. I think that helps the most. I feel like people are overcomplicating it with coaches and everything as well. Like
Yeah.
fear mongering. This is like a lot of fear mongering going on as well. Yeah. Like I think that only this works. You gotta just
Yeah.
go down to the basics.
Dude, I,
All
I
right.
completely agree.
Yeah. All right. And like how many APs did you take?
So I took one my freshman year, three my sophomore year, four junior, so that totals up to eight, and then three more my senior year, so 11 total.
11 total. And like, did you get all fives or were you
All fives on them.
perfect? Yeah, man. You're a
That also was
machine.
not easy, man. That was not easy.
I bet, I bet. What was the hardest class you took that made you think, oh my
Dude, it
God, this
was
guy actually hurt me, you
it
know?
was AP Physics C, man. Like that mechanics and E&M test, I walked out of there, I'm like, there's no way I got a five.
Yeah.
I left like I'm being so honest. I left two of the FRQs blank, like totally. I'm like, God, that was terrible. But I guess if it's hard for me, it was hard for everyone else.
Yeah.
And so the curve came in clutch there, but that was brutal.
All's well that ends well, huh? All right. Let's shift gears real quick and let's talk about like your extracurriculars.
Hmm.
I guess like walk me through your extracurriculars and just let's see like what made it work.
Yeah. So there are a few main like area. There's a lot of stuff that I like did or like tried to
Uh-huh.
explore, but like the main areas I'd say that really made an impact on my application, in my opinion, was my computer science extracurriculars, my
Mhm.
business extracurriculars, and then my debate extracurricular. So I did congressional debate for 4 years, and it was
Okay.
something that originally I was just kind of looped into because my friends did it, but I sort of got a passion for it over 4 years. And it's something that I really enjoyed and I think made a mark in terms of what I actually cared about. In terms of computer science, I was part of my computer science club. I was on the board for 2 years, and I was working on it actually, founding it again since it was down for a few years, and so my
Mhm.
friend sort of revived the club. He's class of 28, so he did it the year before, and then I sort of took over once he left, and so I was a huge part of the computer science club. As one of those initiatives that we had in that club, we created a computer science camp for middle schoolers. And so I was really at the helm of that as well. And I think that's one of the biggest things that I did for computer science. On top of that, I also was part of the Congressional App Challenge, where I tried to submit something for that. And so that's sort of leaning into the computer science aspect. And then for business, I think DECA and Business Professionals of America are the two big things I did there. For
Mhm.
BPA, I don't really think I did a traditional business thing. They have computer science events in that competition, so I did that. DECA is a more traditional business comp. And so I focused on marketing tests, and I've done DECA and BPA for 3 and 4 years, or 4 and 3 years respectively. So those are the business clubs I was kind of a huge part of, and then the computer science clubs, and then debate as well.
So what I'm hearing is basically you were very deep into what we were doing. So like,
Yeah.
what advice would you give to someone he's just looking to start and like he wants to go some way, you know?
Mhm. Yeah. So I think you nailed it. Passion's really important, but I think what you're trying to ask me here is how do you get to that passion level?
Yeah.
And what I'd say is in your freshman year, even your sophomore year, just try to explore as much as you can. Like join everything, even the stuff you might not be interested in. Like let's say it's like a K-pop group or like a dance thing, just join it anyway. Like just join a bunch of these clubs and try to see what your passion is. If you care about something, you're going to stick with it. And then it's kind of like in the first few weeks of school, they're not going to care if you leave because they're
Mhm.
trying to recruit everyone. So once you join something and you don't really care about it, you can kind of just leave anyways and they won't really notice. But just join everything, see what you're interested in, and then you'll sort of see what you are interested in and you'll stick with it.
Perfect. And like, when did you realize you needed to step up your extracurricular game?
I think really it was that junior year spring to freshman year fall. I think I had a lot of stuff I was doing, but I don't think I was going deep enough into the subjects I was interested in. And that's kind of because I was seeing what my friends were doing and they're like really insane. And I was like, wow, okay, maybe I need to step up my game because this is crazy. And I think it goes back to your point you were talking about fear mongering in
Yeah.
college applications. There's a lot of pressure on kids because they're always being compared to everyone.
Yeah.
To an extent, I think that kind of did help me in terms of my extracurriculars. But for a lot of people, it could also be kind of putting too much pressure on
Negative.
you in
Yeah,
a sense,
for
and it can
sure.
kind of break you. I think really a good piece of advice I have, unless you're insane like me and can use that as motivation, is to kind of just focus on yourself. Like, don't really think about what other kids are doing and just think about what you can do to improve or be better at stuff. That's the advice I have here is kind of off tangent, but I would suggest that don't really compare yourself to people. In terms of stepping up my extracurricular games, it was that junior spring to senior fall that I noticed that, yeah, I was kind of lacking behind. And so I was kind of obsessive with my extracurriculars at that moment in time.
Okay, follow up. What was the stuff that was basically useless for your college application in terms of extracurriculars, and you would advise people to avoid?
I would say some volunteer stuff I did. And that's a little controversial to say because volunteering is pretty good, but I think it's only good if you care about what you're volunteering for. Like, I'll give you an example. Let's say you're working at like a pet shelter or something, but you don't really care about like animals
Mhm.
or anything like that. Then, like, what's the point of you volunteering there? You know what I mean? Like, I think something like that only is good for your extracurriculars if you care about it, if you can write about it and explain why it matters to you. And I think that for me was volunteering. There's a lot of volunteering stuff that I did that I really didn't care about. I think the big ones that I did was a business camp my friend started that I volunteered for because I'm huge into business and I really
Uh-huh.
wanted to see kids learn that, as well as the computer science camp initiative that I founded. I think those are the two main things that I cared about in terms of volunteering because they actually mattered to me. But other things that I did just for the sake of getting volunteer hours, I kind of regret in hindsight because I didn't really care about it and I just wanted the hours. And I think that's something a lot of kids do, or even their parents might push on them. I'd kind of suggest you not doing it and maybe spending your time doing something
Uh-huh.
you do care about. I think that could help a lot more.
Perfect. And uh I guess like everyone says like you gotta show impact, right?
Mhm.
How would you say you showed that? And like what advice would you give to people who are trying to portray that as well?
I think the best way to create impact is to create something that would have helped you when you were younger. And the best way to sort of think about this is to look back in time and see like what were the biggest problems you faced that you had to
Mm-hmm.
overcome. For me, right, what I did, and this is kind of going to an example of the Congressional App Challenge I talked about earlier. I created an app that was almost like a health tracker, mental health and physical health like improvement app. The way I came up with that idea to create impact was looking back at my experience in quarantine. Like it was hard for me to stay mentally into things or even like stay physically active because it was so easy to just sleep and do stuff every day. So I looked back in time as to like what the biggest problems I had were. And I thought maybe that's something other people would also have. So usually if you want to do something that creates impact, look into the problems you had. Then 9 times out of 10, other people also face those same problems.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you create a product to help your younger self, that would probably help other people as well.
For sure. And I feel like that'll portray authenticity as well as because like you're literally
Yeah.
solving for your younger self.
Yeah, for sure.
Perfect. All right. I think we got everything we need from extracurriculars. Let's talk about your essays. What did you write your main essay about?
So my main essay was a little bit personal. I will
Mm-hmm.
say you don't have to make it personal. I know my sister wrote an essay about Harry Potter. Like that was fantastical, it was whimsical, right? But my essay was a lot more serious, a lot more personal. So just a note to start with this, you don't have to write about something like serious all the time. I know people always talk about their sob stories. Yeah, if it's genuine, it's a good topic to talk about, but if it's just something you want to like tug at strings
Yeah.
for, like I would suggest not doing it. As for what I wrote about, it was my relationship with my dad. And I
Mhm.
think that was something that mattered to me a lot that I was able to authentically portray it in my essay. And I think that came across to my pen admissions.
Perfect. And like how many essay topics did you go through before landing on this one?
So I went to 3 to 4 topics before I landed on this one.
Mm-hmm.
And they're from a wide array of things that happened across my life. So this wasn't the first idea that came to my mind. There are a lot of things that I kind of thought about, like for example, fashion. I'm
Mm-hmm.
into that a lot. So I was thinking about maybe how I could write about clothes. I also talked about sports too, but I think it ultimately came down to this just because of the impact it could have on my reader, as well as the authenticity it portrayed from my own life. And so, to answer your question, 3 to 4 topics, I think, was what I went through.
Perfect. And like let's talk about like and what made you think like okay, this is the one.
So I think what made me come to that realization was just writing drafts. I think a lot of people get scared to just put their ideas on the paper. The best way for you to figure out what your topic should be is to just write a draft. I think if you put words to paper and sort of see what's flowing and what isn't, that would be
Mhm.
your best indication to see like what works and what doesn't. So what I did was I just wrote like for an hour just an essay draft on one topic, and then I'd look over it, see is it good, is it not, and then maybe I'd like toss it out, and then I'd work on another draft for another topic, and then I just compare them to see like what do I think is flowing the best, what do I think story wise, narrative wise works the best here. And so that's what I did. I just wrote a bunch of different drafts, and then I thought that the essay I wrote about my father was the best one.
I guess my follow-up question would be, and I ask this to everyone, is like how do you be authentic when you're literally trying to impress the best admissions officers?
I think the secret to that is uh, well, I can't really say this because I went into it thinking this is almost like a game that I was playing. Like, what is the best way to like go into the minds of these officers? But maybe that's a little counterintuitive. Who knows? I honestly don't know what my officers were thinking. If I were to go back to the start and
Mhm.
just start from scratch on this, I would say just don't even think that you're trying to convince an officer. This is your story. You're telling your own story here, so write it how you would like to write it. And I think that authenticity would go a great mile for officers. So my answer to that is just ignore the officer. Don't even imagine that they're there and just write your story out.
Perfect. I think this is like one of the best advices I've heard as well. It's like just do your thing and authenticity will come. Yeah. Or like, and when did you start writing your essay? And like, how much time would you suggest people give it?
So I started drafting my Common App in July
Mm-hmm.
of last year. And so I only did that because I had a lot of colleges I was thinking of applying to, and this changes from person to person. So I was thinking of applying to 20. Now that obviously changed once I got my early decision acceptance in, but before that, I was fully committed to writing about like 9 applications for that early deadline and then another 11 for the regular decision. And so because there were a lot of different essays I had to write, I started very early. I know a lot of people don't do 20 and they have maybe
Mhm.
like 3 or 6 that they're very certain on. In that case, maybe you could wait a little longer. I'd still think about topics earlier than later because that
Uh-huh.
gives you a little bit of time to figure out maybe this is my idea I'm going with. Maybe this is what I'm going to talk about. But honestly, I think the sooner the better. It just depends how many colleges you're going to write to. If you have more, definitely write sooner. If you have a little less, maybe you can go a little later. But still, I would say sooner is better.
Perfect. Let's talk about supplemental essays.
Mhm.
Which one do you think was the most brutal?
Oh, okay. I think the most brutal supplemental essay I had to write was the University of Michigan Ross and
Uh-huh.
their business plan essay. So I was really, really stuck on this one for about a month. In fact, actually, before the deadline came, this is like 3 weeks prior, I actually didn't know this essay was there because they hide it. And so I was like, dude, what? What? I have another one to write. So I looked into it, and this one was really, really tough. I maybe spent like 3 to 4 days drafting essays. I spent like maybe a week or two on this one, just because the essay topic, if I remember correctly, was asking what's an issue your community is facing and what is a business plan you'd make to help solve that. And so that's very, very open ended. I was like,
Yeah.
what could I write about? What could I? And I was looking at like the college essay guy like articles and stuff online too. The advice was always saying like you have to be authentic and you have to like speak in articulate terms. You can't like use business terms
Yeah.
incorrectly because then they'd like be able to pick up on that
Yeah.
and see
Yeah.
like you don't know what you're talking about. That added another layer of intricacy into like what I was writing. And I had to like think a lot on this essay. But I think those are honestly the best types of essays and they come out the best because I think this is my best essay I've written as well. Even though there's a lot of like work that came into brainstorming about it, I think the ones that make you think a lot are the ones that turn out the best.
Perfect. I think this is all great advice. All right. Last couple of questions. Now that you're inside, do you think admissions are actually fair?
Yes and no. I mean, in a perfect world, I'd say if you put a lot of effort in to get into a college, you'll get into there. That's not how life goes all the time. Like, you can be putting in your 99% effort and you may still not get your result. I think what matters more than that is knowing that you did your best. And that's a feeling you should be really proud about. Like, let's say I didn't get into UPenn, I'd still be completely okay because I know I put my best foot forward on those essays. And I think that's just something you need to take solace in. You're not always going to get the result you want. Admissions aren't fair because there are hundreds of thousands of applications coming out, and you're one of those people. Just the odds are stacked against you. But I think it's fair in the sense that the more time, the more effort you put in, not only do you have a better shot of getting in, but you also would feel better in yourself even if you don't get in, knowing that you put your
You
best
put
foot forward.
Perfect. And last question. What's your best piece of advice that actually worked? And what's the worst advice that almost screwed you over?
Best piece of advice that actually worked,
Yeah.
the 3 draft rule. I think I'll go into detail about this because that's a little vague the way I said it, but ideally you should make sure that you only have 3 drafts. You write a first draft, you edit the second draft, and your third draft is your final one. Don't make any more changes. I think that's the best piece of advice I have because a lot of people, including myself, go into like an analysis paralysis mode
Yeah.
where they just keep finding better ways to fix your essays. And I get it because you want to make sure the essay is perfect so that you get into your dream school, but you have to be willing to let go of it and say this is good enough at a certain point. Because if you're writing tens of essays, hundreds of essays, right?
Yeah.
It's going to be almost impossible to put the right amount of time into each essay if you're spending so much time fixated on one.
For sure.
That being said, I know some people, like my friend who got into Penn M&T, right? He spent a lot of time on like one specific essay, and maybe that helped him get in. It's different for some people, but I say in general, don't over fixate on one essay because that can really hurt your timeline in terms of writing essays. And it only makes what you've written marginally better. It's not going to completely change the game from what you've already done in three drafts. As in terms of what piece of advice almost screwed me over, oh, that's an interesting one. I would say maybe taking the advice of too many people is that one piece of advice that kind of screwed me over. I had multiple people like proofreading my essays. And that was
Uh-huh.
something that my upperclassmen told me to leverage. Like, talk to your classmates, work with them on editing your essays. That's what all my friends did. Like, they all went to the library. I joined them a few times as well, where we just all proofread each other's essays. I think that's a mistake. Not to say hanging out with your friends and writing essays is not a thing, but I think just you should stick to 1 to 2 people looking over your essays. Because if you have too many eyes, one person may think something is good while another person says it's bad. You're almost going to tread in circles as to what you're writing on your essay, and you're going to go basically nowhere. Whereas if you have 1 to 2 people, then
Uh-huh.
you're able to continuously move upward without worrying about too many people's opinions on an essay. This goes back to the idea I think you were talking about earlier that less is more, and just to keep it
Yeah.
simple, that's very true. Like, just keep it to 1 to 2 people, and also don't worry too much about having so many different drafts because as simple as you can get on your college applications, if you can keep it to like 3 drafts and 1 to 2 people, your essays are going to be just fine. Maybe they're not. Maybe they're not going to be fine, but that's totally okay because you're going to be in a better headspace and you're going to waste less time. I think those are the 2 pieces of advice I'd recommend the most, and I'd stay away from having too many eyes on your papers.
Yeah, and I feel like the more you edit it and the more you get it looked at, uh, the it gets even more filtered, which
Yeah,
can turn out to be much worse than your initial drafts,
right.
for sure.
And I think that also, if you don't mind me saying, I don't know how much time we have left, but that did lead to another train of thought there. What you were saying about it being too filtered, if you have too many eyes on it, you
Yeah,
lose your own voice. Like,
yeah,
it doesn't sound like your essay anymore.
for sure.
That's another thing too. So if you're able to keep it to like 1 to 2 people, you're still able to maintain your voice while improving your essay.
All right, I think this would be extremely helpful for people looking to apply next year. Um, and congrats to you as well, getting to
Hey, thanks
UPenn.
so much, man. Congrats to you on
No,
NYU as well.
for sure. Thank you so much for your time.